Дякую, Каїр. Ми приймаємо естафету від
Thank you, Cairo. We're picking up the relay from the Cairo office of the ILO and move on to the sub-regional office of the ILO in Budapest. And this is happening in Kyiv and it's gonna be aired live, and some of us in here know what it's all about. Marcus Pilgrim is in charge of the group of technical support in Decent Work. He represents the ILO office for Central and Eastern Europe. Let's have it from him.
A warm welcome also from my side to this one-hour talk show on the work of the ILO Office for Central and Eastern Europe. The answer to Andriy Kulikov's question on why we are broadcasting from Kyiv is very easy. Ukraine is the largest country covered by our office, and half of our project portfolio, currently amounting to $25 million, is being implemented here. So the idea for the next 1 hour is really to give the floor to our partners and beneficiaries from Ukraine. They will share with you the story of how we are promoting more and better jobs in Ukraine. With this, I want to hand back to Andriy Kulikov, our moderator and master of ceremony for the next hour. For the viewers from abroad, I should add that Andriy Kulikov is a well-known anchorman of Ukrainian TV and also a professor of journalism. So he's best placed to guide us on being brief and concise. So stay with us, you will get interesting insight on what it takes to work in a large transition economy in Eastern Europe.
Дякую, пане Пілгрим. Сьогодні з нами тут у студії майже
Thank you very much indeed. You get about 100 people in here representing Ukraine government, trade unions, entrepreneurs. You also have students, researchers in here. There are people representing mass media and people representing the diplomatic corps. Ladies and gentlemen, to get started, let's watch a short video.
I'm heading the ILO office for Central and Eastern Europe. What we are going to do in the next 1 hour is to showcase some of our work in the region. Before doing so, let me quickly introduce ourselves and what we do. We are covering 18 ILO member countries ranging from the Baltic republics in the north to the Western Balkans in the south, and from Czech Republic in the west to Ukraine in the east. Currently, we are very much focusing on Western Balkans, Moldova and Ukraine, where our assistance is most needed. We are a team of 60 staff members implementing a project portfolio of $25 million, and half of this portfolio is being implemented in Ukraine, which is also the biggest country in our region. Before handing over to Kyiv, I would like to give you a snapshot of what we are doing in the region, and let me just share with you 3 figures that best demonstrate what we are doing. 400 new jobs were created last year in Bosnia and Herzegovina based on our local employment partnerships. 5,300 young, formerly inactive people in North Macedonia came into employment, education or training last year in North Macedonia based on the newly established Youth Guarantee Scheme. Almost 500,000 workers left the shadow economy in Ukraine in 2018.
Let us introduce the country of Ukraine very briefly to our global viewers. Ukraine is situated in Eastern Europe with a population of 42 million people. The country became independent from the Soviet Union in 1991 and started its transition towards a market economy. In 2014, Ukraine signed an association agreement with the European Union and embarked on ambitious economic and social reforms. It also needs stronger labor relations. The current ILO portfolio focuses on employment creation, labor inspection reform, application of international labor standards, occupational health and safety, wages, inclusivity, equality, and non-discrimination in the world of work.
Ми створюємо ефективну систему аналізу.
We're building an efficient system of analysis, monitoring projections in the labor market of the country. We do projects that seek to reform wages and salary system in this country to make sure that the paycheck is a good stimulating factor for Ukrainian workers to stay in their home country. And those who have left abroad should think of going back to their families and work for the future of the Ukrainian society. We always listen to the expert opinions from the ILO and the opinions of the experts that know various aspects of the labor law in order to harmonize it and approximate to the international labor standards.
Live coverage from there.
І справді діяльність міжнародної
Indeed, the ILO operations in this country are diverse and they cover a number of lines of business. And what is actually a common thing in ILO operations in this region is that a strong focus is placed on work conditions and employment. It is a specific area of expertise in this country. Among the SDGs, Ukraine chose goal number 8 as a top priority goal for itself, which is work and economic growth. That's one of the top 3 priority areas. So in other words, today we're going to talk about issues faced by people at work and what makes that sort of workplace, that job, decent. So for that, we have good experts in here. Alexander Savenko, Director General of the Directorate for Development of Employment Market, representing Ministry of Social Policy. Valery Yaroshenko, Deputy Chair of the State Employment Service. Olga Makagan, Deputy Chair of the State Employment Service. Mariana Shimanska, Career Advisor, representing the State Employment Service in Lviv. Svetlana Ketenko, representing Foodex. She is a governing managing partner. Vitaly Rybachenko, alter ego, a business owner. Let's give it up for them. Also, there is Veronika Tomka in the studio with me, and she will be taking questions from the global audience. And those who are watching and hearing us can start sending their questions. You can do this through Twitter if you use hashtag ILO100. Veronica will cherry pick the most interesting questions and they will come to our discussion panelists. So, based on ILO operations, let's address first and foremost the issues of employment. I'm speaking of the ongoing reforms of the State Employment Service, and it's about starting up and improving your business, but it's easier said than done. So, first and foremost, I'm gonna have it from the people that work in government institutions, and my question would be this. Back in 2014, it's been 5 years ago, in this country they began reforms in many sectors, and one of them was the labor market reforms. So what do you think are the qualitative changes that this reform has produced so far in this country? Maybe Mr. Savenka will start answering. Well, labor market reform is a complicated thing, and nothing comes easy. All right. One of the key priorities of the government is to promote productive employment and labor market reforms. In pursuance of that, we need to come up with new employment programs, we need to upgrade the existing employment programs, We need to look into the expertise of the EU member states, and we can employ some of that expertise in the activities of the State Employment Center. We need to make sure there's going to be flexibility in the labor market. We're going to follow the principles of lifelong learning. Right now, certain legislative changes are necessary to make those things happen. The ministry drafted a new version of the draft law on employment. They established a tripartite task force made up of the social partners. And last week, the force operated under the auspices of the ILO, and Mr. Carbanese and Zambini, the ILO experts, were involved in drafting the verbiage of the law. We're not waiting for the legislative things to happen. Earlier this year, the government introduced the institution of career advisors, and we're going to talk a lot more about that later. Well, hopefully pretty soon, we're going to see the benefits from this reform. Yes, we'll sure discuss the career advisors, and one of them will be speaking later on with us. There are other people working in the government institutions. Mr. Yaroshenko, what do you think of this? What are the changes that the reform has produced so far? Well, certainly, I'd like to commend the ILO because they have been assisting us so much, and we appreciate support from other countries. So in the labor market, we're like a mediator between employees and employers. There is a unique situation in this country right now because quite a lot of jobs have been created, and maybe they're not high-tech jobs, but in the labor market, they are there. And the State Labor Service has a huge database. We've got about 120,000 vacancies in that. We can be useful in the labor market both to job seekers and employers, because some of the employers would like the labor market to produce high-skilled workers. So thanks to the reform, there are lots of new ways of getting things done. We work individually with employers and job seekers. We've got quite a lot of tools in the toolbox which allow us to retrain people. We also have extended capacities. We support those who start up their businesses. We support those who operate openly in the labor market, and they pay the paychecks officially, and that paycheck is decent. The service keeps improving its ways all the time, and we use new services. We offer online consultations to the employers and job seekers. We work with youth a lot. So it's a huge program which has been built by professional consultants, and it allows us to do diagnostics. So whenever somebody's choosing a job, they will be able to see which way to go. They should not just dream about becoming someone. They should do something which would be a benefit to themselves, because they, as youngsters, will find a good job for themselves, and then they will become a more skilled worker. So that effort continues, and we use new developments and techniques that we get from the ILO, and that allows us to keep moving on. After these words, it is clear to me what is it like to be a mediator in the labor market. Anything from Olga Makahon? I'd like to speak about the success of career advisors. In the first quarter of this year, we trained more than 1,500 employees. The State Employment Service appreciates the human capital. They improve it, they make it better. And the career advisors are supposed to take care of the people that come to us. They need to help these people adapt themselves to the current market conditions. They need to see what are the opportunities out there in the market. They come from the State Employment Service and employers. And at the end of the day, people use every opportunity to get a job legally and to do something in the labor market. Career advisors is the first stage in upgrading the operations of the Employment Service. Jointly with the colleagues from the ILO-led project Inclusive Labor Market and Job Creation in Ukraine, we began thinking of consultants for employers. Over time, according to the plans, we will improve existing employment programs, we will determine performance indicators for the state employment service, and this will be relevant to both organizations and individual employees. Well, I don't feel like coming up with the next question. The next question would be, what specific assistance are you getting from the ILO? Because two people have spoken about that already. But still, Olga, Mr. Yaroshenko, Mr. Savenko, could you give me one specific example, each of you? The example of ILO assistance, something that you like the most, something that has been helpful. Well, the Ukrainian labor law is approximating to the provisions of international conventions and instruments passed by the ILO. Back in the day we were drafting the law, we sought to make sure that we be in line with a few conventions like 181, which is Private Recruitment Agencies Convention, and we will determine new ways of collaborating and working together. Employees and employers should find a common language. But Mr. Savenko has the microphone now. You're welcome, sir. Well, I guess it's about implementing the best practices of the EU and other countries of the world in the proceedings of the State Employment Center when it comes to active employment programs and supporting people in the labor market. I got it, Mr. Yaroshenko. There is an ongoing ILO-led project assisted by the Danish government, which is funded. There is 9 million euros for that, and it helps build the system of career advisors, and the employment service can work individually with clients, which can be job seekers and employers. Thank you. And finally, let's have it from the career advisor, Mariana. So what exactly can you do for a job seeker? How can you help them? Certain changes did happen. Well, we can hear what people wish to do, what changes they would like to make, what vacancies are they interested in, and we try to make it a real deal for them. There is an individual contract for service that we make with them, and people assume responsibility for the end result, for the output. Does it often happen that somebody comes to you and says, I'd like to become an archaeologist or a diplomat, and you say, no way, man, you gotta make a journalist? No, it doesn't happen like this, but typically you can see that people have some service records, some background education, but still their services are not needed in the labor market today. So we change them, get retrained for something else, or upgrade their skill so that they're going to be more competitive in the labor market. Pretty often people would like to start up a business. The employment service can aid them in this. We offer them particular courses and they complete it, and as a result they can make a business plan, they can get a one-off aid to start up their business. And it not only helps one person to do something, it actually is something that becomes a good opportunity for creating new jobs. The greatest fun or disappointments that you have experienced as a career advisor, could you tell me about that? The greatest fun, yeah. Oh, let's start with the disappointment. What was the deepest disappointment, the bitterest disappointment you have ever experienced? I don't remember much about that. What is good is that we can help these people and they leave us happy, satisfied. They can find a job, they can get a decent pay, and well, they will tell somebody else about these services. They would say, like, I came to them, they did this and that, now I'm happy, they helped me. Okay, that's how it works. Let's watch another video as a showcase of that.
Problems. Ukraine today faces new challenges. The military crisis in the east and considerable outward labor migration place additional strains on the country's ambition to achieve sustained and job-rich growth. ILO, with support from the government of Denmark, promotes job creation in the country. ILO works to create better employment opportunities for young people, women, and other persons for whom finding jobs is a problem. ILO introduced local employment partnerships in Ukraine last year. Local employment partnerships were successfully used by the European Union and also by ILO in the Western Balkans to create jobs at the decentralized level of municipalities or regions. At the heart of the approach are tailor-made solutions for local employment needs, jointly designed by all relevant players, such as training providers, public employment services, and companies. A recent project implemented by ILO with support from EU shows that the approach can work. 1,600 unemployed people were trained in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and a third of them already found a new job. In order to make local employment partnerships work, the State Employment Service in Ukraine needs to become a true service provider. ILO is supporting the ambitious reform process of this public institution with 12,000 staff to strengthen its ability to address the needs of job seekers and employers. For that, ILO assists the State Employment Service in adapting new service delivery model in Ukraine. The new model builds the placement services that help employers find the skilled workers they need. The new service is being rolled out by more than 1,000 staff trained. ILO also supports self-employment and entrepreneurship as an active labor market measure. ILO plans to train 4,500 potential entrepreneurs in the next 3 years.
Ключове, що ми починаємо в своєму маніфесті, це побудувати країну, в якій буде добробут для всіх. Саме добробут для всіх, можливо, на нові 100 років нове завдання для Міжнародної організації праці.
Зусилля цієї міжнародної організації є ключовими для досягнення цілей сталого розвитку.
Співпраця з Міжнародною організацією праці має для нас величезне значення, оскільки рекомендації спеціалістів, фахові висновки, експертизи відіграють величезну роль в роботі наших законодавців і в роботі українського уряду.
І є тут люди, які
There are some folks in here who are said to have benefited from the program Start Up and Improve Your Business run by the ILO. They trained more than 15 million potential entrepreneurs, and as a result, 9 million jobs have been created across the world. 15 million, 9 million, well, maybe doesn't actually mean anything to you, but there are two people in here who have been able to grasp the opportunity. I'm gonna have it from Svetlana Kitenko. Could you tell us how did you make it happen, and how does that, or how did that change your life once you have gained a new status? In the course of the training in the Start Up and Improve Your Business program, I made a detailed business plan. There was an idea, and this program allowed me to understand the consistent approach in terms of building, developing my business strategically. A grant also helped me move on in many ways. And thirdly, what is also good in this program is that it's a networking. I have met with some of the participants back in 2015, and we have kept in touch ever since. And that sort of support really matters. That communication with real entrepreneurs matters. It allows you to understand what is going on in the labor market of this country. So, as a result of this program, my company successfully operates in Kyiv. We deliver healthy food. The company is called FoodX. And back in the day, I had a 5-strong team. Nowadays, the Kyiv-based team is 35 strong, 35 people working there. So this program also gave me certain ambitions, and it allowed me to look at the businesses in this country in some other way. In spite of some difficult times, there is still way to go. businesses can evolve, and we scaled our operations. We started operating in 6 more cities of the country. Are those franchises? Yes, they're franchises, and the point is that we began back in 2014 when social, economic, and political situation was not very conducive to that, to say the least. But elsewhere, in 6 other cities of Ukraine, except Kyiv, there were our partners, fellow entrepreneurs, which wanted to do the same. So there have been people in this country, even back in the day, who were ready to use their proficiency and knowledge in order to do something to the benefit of this country. Svetlana Kotenko, let's give it up for her. Vitaly Rybachenko, is your experience similar to Svetlana's? Thank you. Hello, I run a small business. It's barber shops. After I did the training in the Startup and Improve Your Business program, I started a beauty salon, a beauty parlor in Bucha town. We have young moms as employees, and they can enjoy flexible working hours. There are also other people which cannot do everything they would want to, but we can offer them certain training, we can help them improve their skills, and at the end of the day, they can work with us. Some of the people are IDPs, and the manicure expert is working with us. She's an IDP, so there are a few more guys like that. We are socially responsible people, and we take part in all kinds of programs that are done in our community. We're not standing away from that. When I began my business, I remember we only had 3 people working. Now we have 9 people working. They all are good, and I'm number 10. I'm the 10th barber in that parlor. Well, so you have gained a lot of skill. Are you happy with the way your business has been progressing? Yes, I spend a lot of time keeping it up this way, and I keep on training others, and I keep learning myself. We work with people in Berdyanka, Irpin, and other neighboring towns. Are people lining up in order to get the service from your business? No, they sign up in advance. And I wonder, why do they say from time to time that the center of the Kyiv region should be moved to Bucha town? Maybe your barber shop is one of the reasons. Okay, so we're referring back to the program Start Up and Improve the Business. What is your greatest experience? If you get something started up, you have a hope, you have an idea, but sometimes you never make anything out of that. So you need to figure out what exactly you gotta do. When you do something, it is important to see what is your idea like from a different angle. You can kind of step away from it and see what it's like from the outside. You need to figure out how can you move on, scale up your business, making it something better. We keep in touch with similar services in other countries, and we can compare ourselves against them. We can see how rapidly we're developing in this country and how healthy food services are evolving elsewhere in more successful European countries. And I'm happy to see that we're doing a good job, because our fellow colleagues from other markets are interested in coming down to our Kyiv office and see how we have been able to make it like this, how we established business processes. All right. In order to cross the T's, I have a question for Mr. Yurshenko or Ms. Makahon. Speaking of the State Employment Service, has it done anything at all to make sure that the above program has become possible? Well, we support those who drafted the plan for starting up a small or medium-sized business. We offer unemployment benefits. We can only do it once for somebody if they produce a business plan. But it's good if some other funding sources are available, like sources from the local community or some other, it can be international foundations and stuff like that. So you can start up your business even if you're unemployed right now. Thank you so much. I guess further on in the course of this discussion, there might have been questions coming to Twitter following the hashtag ILO 100. So let me check with Veronica and see which of the questions are the most interesting. Let's have them answer these questions again.
Questions. This one is for Svetlana or Vitaly. What is the added value entrepreneurs bring to the job market? And I will have another question for Mr. Yaroshenko too.
Реальні цифри підтверджують.
Well, the numbers actually speak for themselves. That's how we influence the labor market. What we began as a team of 5 people was one thing. Now this team operates in 7 cities of the country, and it's a total of 60 people. And that's how we change things, and 60 more families in the country are enjoying it. You're doing better than Vitaly. He hasn't had such a big team yet. We also actively work with charities, and I can share some of that experience. Recently, my company offered internship to some people. There is an initiative like upgrading the skills of people of retirement age, and we worked with that organization, and some of their folks, like some retirement age women, came to us and they would learn social media, marketing techniques, and that's how I think we help these people. And even the elderly can be pretty much competitive in the labor market in this country. Okay, Vitaly, over to you. Speaking of the added value, what can you tell me about that? I'll speak for my small business, in which I have been able to find my line of business. It's because we are professionals. I have spent the last 20 years working in this sector, and I offer services, I offer training, and I help my fellow colleagues gain a better skill. And I can actually take some people and train them from the scratch, and over time they will become experts. And actually, it's a never-ending process. The improvement means never standing still. Only sky is the limit.
So this question is for Mr. Yaroshenko. What makes the state employment service really useful for the labor market?
Дякую. Я думаю, що
Last year, among 2 million of people who came to us looking for work, about 1 million out of that number found a job at the end of the day, and they found a job during the search period. It's not like they got an unemployment benefit of a kind and that's it, but they came to us, and a week later we helped these people find a job. And since it happened so fast, we have been able to save huge amounts of funds for the insurance fund. It was 1,200 million hryvnia all in all. We saved that much because we helped those people find the job quickly enough. We also have the vocational training centers, and we cover 90 occupations there. People can be trained or retrained. They're gonna get a diploma. Last year, 147 people have been trained to master a new occupation. Thank you all very much, dear panelists. We will keep continuing the overview of the operations of the ILO in the Central and Eastern Europe, and this time it is the Ukrainian question. So with this, let's watch another short video.
Jobs. The quality of jobs is also central to the ILO work in Ukraine. We cannot speak about sustainable job creation if working conditions are not safe and healthy. ILO is supported by the governments of Canada, Denmark, Sweden, and the European Union to boost Ukrainian reforms in occupational safety and health, labor inspection, maternity protection, and non-discrimination at the workplace. Around 30% of workers in Ukraine do their daily work in conditions that do not meet the Ukrainian occupational safety and health standards. Work-related accidents and occupational diseases are high in comparison with other countries. The number of fatal accidents in Ukrainian coal mines is more than 20 times higher than in South Africa or Australia. The key challenge is to build up a safety culture that anticipates and prevents risks at work. A further challenge when talking about the quality of jobs in Ukraine is that 1 out of 4 workers is in informal employment without any social protection. In order to improve working conditions, ILO assists Ukrainian authorities to align the legal framework for occupational safety and health with international labor standards and EU directives. ILO trains labor inspectors and corporate safety officers to conduct risk assessments and to implement practical safety measures at the workplace. The training of labor inspectors also includes guidance on how to combat undeclared work. Until today, 700 labor inspectors and safety coordinators have been trained to instruct others on how to improve safety at work. They have reached out to several thousand employers and workers in detecting and minimizing risks and hazards. The fight against undeclared work is also making good progress. Apart from improving occupational safety, ILO also works on non-discrimination at the workplace. The ILO has been working with the Ukrainian maritime sector, one of the biggest industries in the country, to raise awareness of HIV/AIDS and to improve services available. More than 10,000 women and men, workers in the maritime sector, participated in information seminars. More than 1,000 people took the HIV test. The most representative trade union from the sector has adopted an HIV workplace program, rolling out a prevention and anti-discrimination campaign.
Дуже важливо, щоб Україна сьогодні змогла ратифікувати або підійшла до ратифікації ще декількох базових конвенцій, наприклад, 183, яка передбачає вирішення питань охорони материнства, дитинства. В нашій країні, де смертність переважає народжуваність, це надзвичайно важливо.
Україна ратифікувала 71 конвенцію МОП, норми якої стали частиною нашого трудового законодавства. Ще майже 10 конвенцій готуються до ратифікації.
Ну що ж, тепер і я
Well, now I know a bit more about the panelists because it was a story about what do they do in terms of combating HIV/AIDS and things like that. But let me also remind everybody of the hashtag ILO100. You're welcome to send your questions in through the Twitter to the panelists. Roman Cherneghy, the chair of the State Labor Service. Taras Desятник, deputy chair on OSH Stepova Mine Pit, state-run company Lviv-Vugilla. Alexander Morosevich, director of DP Vigada, it's a forestry business. Dmitry Matveychuk, the editor-in-chief of OSH magazine. Elena Karavan, representing the Maritime Transport Trade Union in Odessa. And there is somebody else, Vadim Mudryevsky, the captain. The first question for Elena: why do you think your trade union believes that such a strong focus should be placed on combating HIV/AIDS? According to statistics, about 1% of adult population of this country is infected with HIV, unfortunately. Based on that statistic, my trade union over many years has been trying to prevent HIV at work. We collaborate with the ILO, and that made this work a lot more consistent. Recently, my union, which involves more than 78,000 people all in all, signed a work program in the context of HIV, and in that program we're intending to cover as many unionists as possible and their loved ones and families. We're going to cover them with awareness-raising campaigns, and they will also enjoy free HIV testing, anonymous HIV testing. We also think it is important to combat stigma at work because it is a serious challenge today. Could you give us all an example of how have you helped people in this? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is the story of the two sailors that came to my union, and they had issues with HIV and it would hamper their work rights. We have been able to offer them a quality advice, and it was not just about the industrial rights, but we told them where they could go and get a more qualified specialized assistance, therapy, and so on, and how they could move on and live a good life. Mr. Captain, when the union suggested that you take some training on HIV/AIDS, have you been happy hearing or seeing that? Because the captain has a lot of other things to do, I guess. Yeah, but nevertheless, I happily accepted the offer because it was about my health and the health of my crew. HIV is a very topical thing in this part of the world, and we need to know how can we protect ourselves. As a captain, I need to know how can I help a crew member if they declare their HIV positive status. The people that work in the maritime transport, like crew members, why are they vulnerable to that? Well, we all are vulnerable to HIV, I think. If we look at the statistics, people of the most productive age, 25 through 49, declare their positive HIV status. Sailors and workers of the maritime sector, they also are vulnerable to this infection as they do their job. So I think we need to do everything we possibly can in order to try and prevent this from happening. We need to make them aware of this hazard. In Kyiv city, there are lots of places here and there where you can get tested for HIV. I was thinking of doing it, but I never did. You did. So was it easy or hard to do it, and what was your experience like? It was not the first test that I took, but after doing it, you're relieved, and they could do it quickly in the course of the ILO-led training, which the union received, and everybody should know their HIV status. That allows you to live better, productively. Even if you're HIV positive, your life is not done. You can take a therapy, a treatment, and you can live many more years healthily. Nobody would expect that HIV/AIDS would have to do with the workplaces, but now we can see that particular association. Thank you very much, folks. And there is more to that when it comes to jobs, workplaces, and we need to think of the labor inspectorate and what they can do in this entire business. So, Mr. Chernega, you are in charge of the service that wants to make sure that you get quality jobs across the country, and OSH is one of the components of that. So what do you think is the major challenge in this sector for the labor inspectorate of this country? We need to try and nurture a new culture of relations between employees and employers when it comes to health of staff in particular companies. We have inherited the Soviet kind of system, Soviet practices in OSH, which is largely based on planned economy. But nowadays, we gotta do things differently, and the whole world and the best practices that you get today clearly suggested. And we try and implement some of that. We look back at the ILO conventions and OSH directives. So all of that clearly indicates the need to change the ways in which we take care of our health and work conditions. We need to strive and establish decent work conditions, and that's what the ILO is concerned about, and they readily share their expertise with us. Could you give us a specific example of that. In this country, there is an ongoing project over the last 3 years, which is about implementing institutional capacities of the state labor inspectorate in this country. It is a part of the intergovernmental program of a kind, which is called Decent Work in Ukraine. Based on that project, we have had a major achievement. Earlier this year, they approved the concept of reforms of the labor inspection system and is going to practice a risk-oriented approach. And that's the practice that you could see across other European countries, and that's the way these countries do things in OSH. And thanks to that support and that project, we have had an opportunity to reform some of the laws and shape up particular practices which are very close to the ILO practices that are seen in other countries. So the Ukrainian law is no different. Somebody said birds are flying up high and they can see it all. So let's see how these things are developing locally. I have a question for Mr. Desятnik, who runs a coal sector business. In your particular business, what is your experience of collaborating with the ILO? Hello, everyone. I represent one of the units of Stepava Mine Pit. It is a state-run mining company. Right now, we are a pilot involved in the ILO-led project that is done together with the Ministry of Energy and Coal sector. My mine pit is a pilot in that exercise. So we're introducing a new system of OSH in the business. Tell me more about the novelty of the system. Well, we typically use old instructions and guidances and provisions. All of that is antiquated, obsolete. We would like to see something new, something fresh, something that's going to make mining operations a lot safer. So we want to try out something like that based on international standards. Thank you. Over to Alexander Matusevich. You run a forestry business, so what kind of benefit do you ever get from the collaboration with the ILO? Well, speaking of benefits, I guess you get benefits from the ILO when they offer consultations to you and training sessions. State labor inspectors are a part of that endeavor, so I really appreciate that. So these inspectors attend all kinds of training sessions organized by the ILO here and there. And you attend some, or they come over to you. They come over to us, basically. In the end of last year, a workshop was held in my company. And we all could see the existing risks that you get in the forestry sector, in all kinds of operations happening there. They gave us recommendations and we're trying to follow them in our business, so we really appreciate this approach. Okay, Roman, you're welcome. I'd like to add a few words saying that these trainings are not limited down to Kyiv city and Kyiv region. The colleague represents the west of Ukraine, Ivano-Frankivsk region, and we work together with the ILO and ILO staff in Kyiv, and we chose that particular format of doing it. It's not just about having everybody come down to Kyiv. It's about going out to the regions of the country, and experts go to the regions and see what it's like out there, what it's like in particular businesses, and they tell them how can they do better. They are outside experts and they can better see what can be improved. I remember working in one company, that was a long while ago, and we were given some instructional advice on safety. And the man in charge would tell which people are supposed to take care of that and which people are supposed to do just their job and nothing else. Do you think everybody should be aware of OSH, or should it be done some other way? Well, nowadays, the greatest focus is placed on OSH because it's about health of employees. And that leads to better labor productivity of each and every worker and the entire business at the end of the day. So there is no alternative to that, I guess. Okay, so I think there might be some questions from the global audience. Back to Veronica. Any questions from the global audience?
This question is for Taras or Alexander. Risk assessment is somewhat subjective. Why does it still work better than just giving clear instructions?
А до пана Тараса або до
Okay, let's have it from Taras or Alexander. If I'm not mistaken, it's from Poland. I think we have seen Veronica. Well, I think me and Veronica have met before, so speaking of instructions, typically they are obsolete, they were written a long time ago. But we need to do something about that. We need to keep monitoring the risks, identifying them, and minimizing them. I fully agree, actually. There is nothing to add.
Question is for Elena. How do you think your union's leadership in HIV response at the workplace will contribute to ending HIV/AIDS in Ukraine?
Если говорить
If we speak in the context of this country, which is the leader in terms of the number of HIV-infected people in Europe, and Odessa is the city that is the leader in the country in this regard, then it is clear that the work that is done by us jointly with the ILO is an advocacy and an awareness-raising kind of exercise, allowing many people to get the point and to see what their HIV status is. We think it is indeed something that's going to help avoid new cases of infection, and it will make the situation and statistics a bit better. We can share our practices with other sectoral trade unions. We can readily do that. We work with the ILO, and we have gained some expertise and tools, and we're willing and are capable of sharing this knowledge and expertise with others. Okay, from the answers we have heard, it is clear that there is a need to change the attitude. Taras and Dmitry suggested that instead of instructions, we need to assess the risks and so on and so on. One of the people who keeps trying to change the mentality, the mindset, is Dmytro Matvichuk. He is in charge of an OSH magazine in this country. So I think you might exert some influence on the way things are in this sector. You're actually an editor-in-chief of the magazine. So over the last few years, you have been organizing the competition of children's drawings on the OSH subject. So what's the idea behind this competition? Well, the idea is pretty clear. It is to preserve lives and health of people. That's what all of us have in common. And that competition is about that. But we operate in two areas in pursuance of that goal. We make programs and plans, they get fulfilled, and we can see what's the upshot. But all of that is rather short-term. When it comes to children, children are about the future of this country, and they are our future, and we would like to make it a better future for ourselves and for them. They will become directors in future. They will run businesses, manage them, and it's important to see what kind of ideas and motivation they will have in making decisions in the future. How big is the competition right now? This year, We received more than 11,000 drawings, children's drawings. And how many were prize winners? There were 9 winners, and there was a panel of jurors making a decision. But we extended this competition because most of the pieces that came in would go to the popular panel of jurors, which would use social networks and Facebook to make their choice. More than 8,000 people were willing to have a say in that, and this audience keeps growing. Would you like to see a bit of a future? So let's look at the winners of the competition. Medalists. There are 4 of them, it's not all. I met with them before the show, so we have Ira here, Danilo, Kirill, Roland. What made you take part in this competition? My teacher told me about this, and what did she tell you? I'm gonna give you the top grade or 2 top grades if you do it. What was the deal? She told me, like, draw something and win. Draw and win. Okay, that's as easy as you can get. My teacher told me about this as well, and the mom said I should give it a try. School and family working together, okay? My teacher told me about this competition on OSH, how children see it, so you need to draw something about OSH, and she told me that everybody could choose to do it. And you, sir? My teacher also told me about this, and she told me what it's about, and I was interested, and I made this piece. And then I have a question for Dmitry. Have you checked with high schools with this project? Well, it's the whole society that is doing that. It's a great deal of support. It's a good investment in the future. One man said, it's the cheapest way of improving OSH in the country, so we can see some real issues with that today. So the ILO, Ukrainian institutions, trade unions, parents, teachers, everybody get involved. And children influence parents. And that makes OSH a better deal. So we're trying to look into the future, thinking of the better OSH practices for children, and children are thinking of the better OSH for their parents. So parents are now more OSH-minded. Danilo, why did you draw this particular thing? Because I think that builder is a kind of occupation that is very unsafe, and you gotta know the safety rules in order to stay on the job. Okay, I can see some signage there, some posters. Okay, what I really liked is this piece from Cyril, reporter, put on the hard hat to be on the safe side. Well, that's about the way things are happening these days. Why did you choose that? I remember watching some news on TV, and I was worried about the people who speak with the military. Okay, OSH, exclamation mark, and then there are some happy people standing there. What makes them so happy? Because they like what they do, they like their job. Yes, people are happy because they like their job. And I think they like it because it's a decent job, it is done at a decent workplace. And Roland made 4 pieces in order to convey that idea. Why so? Pretty often in the mass media, I hear them speak about lethal cases in different sectors. And in these pieces, I combined all these problem areas. And maybe the last question for the competition medalists, where do you come from, and what do you think you will become in future if you have made up your minds? I'm Roland, I live in Ternopil city. I'd like to make an architect, okay? I'm Ira, I live in Kharkiv region. I want to become either a model or a taekwondo athlete. Well, both can go together pretty well. You can do the model, and then taekwondo. I'm Kirill, I'm from Novokakhovka city. You know what you want to make? A dentist, I think. I'm gonna make a dentist, okay. I'm Danil, I live in Kherson region. I want to become an architect. Okay, there are 2 architects among 4 winners. You're so different from different parts of the country, and that's where it's at. All right, we're supposed to finish it up, so let's go back to Budapest and let's keep it up this way because we have seen a part of our future. Thank you all very much indeed. Typically in the scripts that you get as a moderator, you can see that after some work, there is time for informal speaking, and this time will come definitely, but still there are some people